All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Super Team Fantasy Football Podcast. We have a special treat for you today. Edwin's going to be on the guest for the duration of the show today, talking mid-season power rankings. Edwin, how are you?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thank you for having me on the podcast, sir.
Of course, it's our pleasure to have you on here, and I know you did a lot of work going through your rankings. You know, you're not just going off the top of your head the way I was. You got some numbers behind it, some analytics, and we'll see
Right,
where we
right,
go
right,
from there.
right. I try to contribute a little bit of, my institutional knowledge here. We're gonna see how far that goes now.
All right, well, let's jump right into it here. Number 12. And to give everyone a background here, we have power rankings from myself, Edwin, and Will Tam, and we averaged them. So as we go through each team from 12 to 1, we're going to talk about where they're at in the consensus rankings and then where they're at in our rankings, how they differed, etc. But the one team that didn't differ across the board, Kenny comes in at number 12. What were your thoughts there, Edwin? And that's consensus and in all three of our rankings.
Yeah, and I think it's unfortunate there was a consensus but it's really tough to argue that he shouldn't be number 12. He's the lowest scoring team overall. Um, Overall, it's tough to kind of find the bright spots to say like, hey, he's gonna turn things around. But I will say, Kyrie Hill coming back, could prove out to help his team down the road. I know
Yep.
it's a tough injury to overcome early on.
Mm-hmm.
Joe
Yeah.
Mixon also big bust, so that's top draft picks that just haven't panned out.
Oh, completely agreed. And Tyreek definitely set him back. I think you look at it, one of the reasons I don't really like his team going forward, because when I was ranking the power rankings, I was also thinking like a forward going basis, is the fact
Yep.
that I'm not that high on Brady rest of the season. I just don't think that he has the weapons this year. It looked early in the year that he would when he had Antonio Brown, but now it's just, Mohamed Sanu's the guy they went out and got. They got rid of Josh Gordon. It's not an impressive cast. So Brady's not the type of fantasy quarterback I like to carry. And then Joe Mixon looks like he's having that Todd Gurley year from 4 years ago or whatever it was, with Gurley's sophomore year when the offensive line stunk and he was had a horrible season. I mean, that Bengals offensive line stinks and the defense is horrible too. So not a whole lot of mixing going on. And I think those two players leading Kenny's squad, it's just holding him back.
Yeah, and just overall, just thinking through, as you mentioned, the rest of the way. Part of what I did, I was looking back to just rank overall the wins and losses that certain teams had. So if you got losses against the top-rated teams or wins against the top teams, I try to weigh that out.
Yeah.
And even just looking in that sense, there's nothing really to point to help his case. But you never know. I mean, we still got a couple of weeks left, and he does have some talented players. He could climb out of that 12 spot.
Yeah, I guess if you were to climb out, it'd be DJ Moore catching fire, a guy like AJ Brown. Maybe he does, work with Ryan Tannehill, Jarvis Landry if that Cleveland offense gets going. So you're right. I mean, it's too early. He is 2-5, but I mean that's the beauty of this league is that a team that's 2-5 is 12th place and the unanimous 12th place. There's just a whole lot of parity going on.
Yeah, and I'd say like full disclaimer on this power rankings, it was extremely difficult. It's like splitting hairs with some of these. Some
Well,
of these teams are I think it's what 3 through 9 is separated by like one game.
yeah, for sure. I mean, hey, we don't need to do disclaimers. We can insult people on this show, Edwin. It's no problem. We don't have to go down the
Yeah.
middle. well, well, speaking
Fair enough. Fair enough.
speaking of insulting, Chris comes in as the consensus 11th team. He came through with two votes for 11 on yours and Tam's rankings. I ranked him 10th. Um, I mean, Chris is in a similar spot. He's 2-5, but I think Chris has a little bit more talent than Kenny's, which is why I put him ahead of there. And
Yeah.
in fact, Chris basically carries the Los Angeles Rams. He has Brandon Cooks, Cooper Cup, and Jared Goff, if I remember correctly. So, that's a team that's underperformed and is probably part of the reason he's sitting there tied for last place in the league. What did your advanced analytics over there come out with on Chris?
Yeah, so I kind of like Chris Team to be honest, but he does have the Rams. He has Gurley, Cooks, and Cup, which preseason you would be excited to have guys of that caliber, but they just haven't panned out. I do see he's riding a 3-game losing streak, so that doesn't bode well for any power ranking conversation.
Right. Yeah.
So I think his starters start performing. That could go a long way, but I don't see much to support him on his bench. So that could come into play on the, by week apocalypse.
The bipocalypse. Yeah, I mean,
Which I think might be week 9 for him. So better watch out.
yep. Oh, for sure. I'm looking too at Chris, and I mostly noted the Rams he was invested in, but a nice pick he had was Allen Robinson too. That should help him. I think Chris is in there in that that bottom tier of teams along with myself and Tim and maybe even Crawford where you look at it and you're like these teams could make a run. Crawford's actually got a better record, but myself and Tim where you're wondering if they're going to be able to crawl out from the doldrums, but uh, I think Chris just has a little bit less to work with than some of the other teams are going to go through.
Yeah, and I think he does have potential. And speaking to the teams that are near his, I guess, overall ranking, points scored, he's at 817, which, Travers sitting with a better record at 814. So,
Yeah.
Chris could definitely come into play and crack that playoff spot, but he's going to have to get high. Week 9 bye weeks might be tough to overcome, but we'll see if he adjusts his lineup accordingly.
For sure. And I just want to correct one previous point. I said he had Jared Goff, Cooks, and Cup. It looks like he has Todd Gurley, Cooks, and Cup. But still quite invested in the Rams was the point in the conversation. Other than that, not a ton that could blow up on this team unless Baker Mayfield finally gets going for him. But it certainly is tough to see that happening.
I will say I do love the Stafford pickup. I think that's a great move by him.
Yep.
Got a good matchup this week, next week, and maybe that can give him a boost, especially over Baker, as you mentioned. He's been a bit of a bust, so he does need the QB help.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I know there's a lot of discussion around on Matthew Stafford. No one really wanted him this year, but because he kind of had a down year last year, coupled with an injury. But some of these players like Stafford, they've just put a career together of fantasy success to the point where you almost have to expect him to go out and be a low end fantasy starter. I would say like him and Philip Rivers are in that category where you're never excited about them, but they always seem to end up at the bottom of the rankings at the end of the year. I mean, bottom of the QB1 rankings.
Yeah, for a team like him that's looking to make a run, I think that's a good move. Why not? Swing for the fences.
Right. For sure. Anything else on Chris here before we move to our consensus 10th ranked team?
No, I think that covered it.
Alrighty. Well, coming in at number 10, and this one's going to involve a lot of discussion because you were the highest on our 10th consensus ranked 10th team, which is Will Travers. He came in at 8th in your rankings, 11th in my rankings, and 10th in Will Tam's. So why don't you talk about why Travers isn't getting enough credit for the quality of his team?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, looking overall, I think Travers is doing it to himself. Man, set your lineup. Please set your lineup.
Doing it to himself. I mean, you would be an expert on that, wouldn't you?
Hey, sometimes you gotta work from home. Looking at his lineup over here, it doesn't help the fact that Adams has been hurt. Obviously, he's a key player for his lineup. You would think he would start Nick Chubb over, one of the likes of either Tariq Cohen or Montgomery.
Yep.
Just to hedge that a little bit.
I think he's on vacation.
Yeah, and his team is as well. He started Adam Thielen last night, who was already announced to be out. So
ouch! I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, so that's why I'm calling on Travers to just wake up a little bit and help him because he is sitting at 4-3, so that's tied with I believe 2 other teams for 4-3. And looking at his overall losses. I think he only lost to top teams or what we consider top-rated teams.
Mm-hmm.
He's riding a 4-game win streak right now, so I want to give him the higher ranking due to the hot streak.
Yep.
Obviously, that doesn't mean that he's going to win the future matchups, but I figure if someone's riding a 4-game win streak in this league, they deserve some bit of a boost.
Yeah. No, they definitely do. I guess the reason I ranked them so low, and I was at 11th, so I had them below Chris's team. Part of it was the in season management. I mean, I didn't even notice Adam Thielen got started in the lineup. That's not going to help anyone. He's got the Cowboys on bye in his starting lineup. He's got Jacoby Myers going. I think Travers is the ultimate tilter in fantasy sports. He's a very he's a very big DFS guy. And as such, we haven't seen him have a lot of success in the season long leagues. He gets impatient, writes guys off quick, puts a lot of emotion into it. Yeah, I guess the starting lineup will just chalk that up to his vacation, and maybe it's a 1 week thing. But he also has David Montgomery at running back and Tariq Cohen, both in that Chicago offense that I just can't see it getting off the ground. And after that, that's his running backs. It's Montgomery, Cohen, Nick Chubb, and Chris Thompson. So he's got to put Chubb in there. And if after Chubb, it's a bunch of crap at the moment. He doesn't even have a good number 2 back. And you compare that too with having Devontae Adams out, Deshaun Jackson out. Not a whole lot of flexibility on his bench either.
Yep, I agree with that note. Unfortunately, I gotta step away real quick, and I can let you continue along here.
Alrighty. Well, we'll take a quick break here. We've gotten through the top 3. Maybe we'll circle back on Travers in a little bit, but do what you got to do, and we'll talk to you in a little bit, Edwin.
Sounds good, man. Apologies for the break.
No problem.
Back around.
All good. All right, we'll catch you soon. All right, we're back here. We have Edwin on the line again. Edwin, is your house underwater? Leaking from the ceilings? Everything good over there?
Well, thank you for welcoming me back. Sorry about that. Thankfully, no leaking. So that's the good news there. Unfortunately, we had to do some pipe work, but push through.
Hey, the key is always no water damage. The rest of it is gravy, right?
Exactly. I'm all ready to go now.
All right. Good to hear it. All right. Well, we were just talking about Travers here. Came in as a consensus number 10 team. I kind of laid out my reasons for ranking him a little bit low. I know you're the 8th. You were number 8, and you were saying that he has a lot of talent, needs to manage his team a little bit more, and you think he can improve. Do you have anything more to add to that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think I already mentioned before the win streak, and I think that just holds weight in this league. And I think in the 3 wide receiver league, Thielen, Adams, Godwin is pretty filthy. If he just gets it together with the supporting cast, I think he can pull through.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. He definitely has some ability, and and has a lot of good players. It's just a matter of how much effort is he going to put in. And hey, he's a recently engaged man, and throwing his life into his relationship, you have to honor that to an extent too.
Right. I know. Yeah, his priorities right now aren't where they should be, understandably. But unfortunately, it doesn't boost up his power ranking.
Yeah, and that's what we're here for. We're not talking about his relationship right now.
Exactly.
All right. Well, we'll go back to the next team here. Coming in as our consensus 9 team is Tim. He had 9 rankings from me and Tam, and you had him at 10, so you're a little bit lower on Tim. Take me through your thoughts on Tim's team.
Yeah, I think similar to you guys, compared to some of the other teams that are currently around the same record as him, I just saw him a little bit lower. Overall, points scored 821. Doesn't really jump out at you. Obviously, losing Mahomes, who's the 2nd round pick.
Yeah.
That's a big blow. Losing Gordon, that's a big blow. He had already lost Breeze previously. Connor, who's supposed to be, his top running back, has been banged up this year also.
Yeah.
It's just seeing a lot of, putting missing pieces towards the top. So the guys are supposed to bring in the points for him.
Right.
Dave's had a big week, but he also had a slower start. So just overall, seeing that the main top pieces for his team have been sort of subpar. And just going for the long haul, don't think he's got as much firepower as some of the other teams in the same ranking.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. He actually tried to offer me Pat Mahomes earlier this week. I believe it was like Mahomes for it was Mahomes and Burita for Josh Jacobs and Odell Beckham. And I told him, I was like, I'm 2-5. I can't trade for an injured player. Like, and it was an intriguing offer, but
Right.
I think he might have had more success if he offered that sort of arrangement to his team that had some more wins on the record. Like, I don't know what Mark would be willing to give, but a team like Mark sitting there at 7-0 is more likely to invest in Mahomes than a team that's 2-5. And if I lose next week, I'm I'm essentially out.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a huge gamble for a team in your position, as opposed to a Mark here, who's sitting pretty. He's already a shrewd businessman, so I doubt he would trade with anyone at this point.
Yeah, Mark's been an absolute shark, and all he's gonna do is just absolutely wave his dick at us with each victory.
Yeah, I think going back to Tim, to your point, I could see the argument being made for him going a little higher because all his losses have come against what we consider the top teams, or the second half of the team that's with winning records.
Yeah.
So overall, he hasn't. He's faced tough competition, and given his underperforming top assets, I could see the argument for moving him a little higher. But why did you put him, in your ranking?
I had him at number 8, number 9. Yeah, I don't know why I can't read the screen in front of me, but so I had him at number. I had him at number 9 because I think Diggs is picking it up from his early season slump, and the other guy was Calvin Ridley. Now that the Falcons traded away Mohamed Sanu, I think Calvin Ridley's going to absolutely blow up in the second half of the season, along with Julio. And it's just, I think those two players are going to help, him having a much better second half than he's had a first half. But that being said, you look at some of the teams ahead of him, it's hard to see Tim. Things need to go right for him, and he needs Mahomes back quick if he's going to make a playoff run.
Yep, certainly. And I think the Ridley point is it's a fair one. Given the 3 wide receiver league here and losing Gordon, he needs someone to step up, and really certainly a great candidate for that.
Mm-hmm. For sure. All right, moving on. Now we're on to me, so we're going to have to have you lead this off, but I was the consensus 8th team, I believe. And if you look at the rankings, Tam and I each ranked my team at 8. You had my team ranked at 9, so you're a little bit lower, a little bit less bias. Tam, giving me a little rub down there to make me feel better with 8. What did you see that gave you the 9th ranking there for my squad?
Yeah, I think it came down to my surprise Travers leapfrog there. Ultimately, I went with the hot hand and Travers, the 4-game win streak. And at 2-5, obviously, you've had some tough luck there. And generally, you've lost out to top teams. You haven't been losing to anyone with losing records, or I should say, like, towards the bottom of the league. So that's why, I still had you above, for example, 10 in my ranking. I do like your running back depth at the beginning of the season. Hasn't quite panned out, but I know you've been getting those scratch tickets, waiting for those to pop off.
Yep.
And obviously,
little scratchy scratch.
Jones and OBJ, who I just feel like they're going to blow up the second half of the year, and that's where your true strength lies. But we can't ignore OBJ underperforming this year.
Right.
It's disappointing. We all wanted to see him go off. And so far he's been more so, an average guy, and he's meant to be one of your elite players,
Right. Agreed with you there. I had the same notes. I also noted that Sony Michelle and Josh Jacobs have been picking it up in recent weeks. I don't really have a top flight quarterback, and maybe that's where I'm lacking. But I do have Josh Allen and Sam Darnold, who I'm playing matchups with. Darnold has a run of incredible matchups coming up. So I gave
Yep,
myself the
yep.
edge over some of the bottom tier teams. I think I can make a run, but a lot needs to pick up right for in order for it to happen.
Yeah, I think some of the sneaky moves there that Corey Davis picked up, who now, who never know, he might have that chemistry to actually blow up and use that talent that we've been waiting on for so long. Um,
Well, we
I
know
think that
we could keep going. Sorry.
oh no, no, yeah, and I was going to point out the Kenny Stills pickup, with Fuller being hurt. I like those two moves. Those studs could actually go for big plays. We know that touchdown, boom or bust sometimes, but they can get those big plays for you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You know me with Corey Davis. I've always been a fan. I subjected Mark to a film session last year at the office. Um, Not the kind of films that we know you're into, Edwin, but just a little, taking a look at
Oh,
Corey
my
Davis's
tax
play.
milestones, of course.
Yeah,
Manage videos and tax milestones is all I'm into.
a few soccer videos as well.
Soccer highlights are my go-to for sure.
Yeah. But I have a Corey Davis signed jersey and signed helmet, so as soon as he became fantasy relevant again, I had to go all in. But
Oh, for sure.
like I said, a lot needs to go right, and maybe I could just make a few teams feel bad not name Mark for the through the rest of the season because Mark is just he just took an absolute salty discharge on my team, and I'm still trying to clean up from that.
Well, the best thing going for you right now is you get to beat up on the Foggy Hoggy Hog.
Yeah, the Foggy he checked his team and made some moves today, Kenny. So I'm surprised he's not completely checked out. But
Oh,
I do get to beat up on him a little bit.
exactly. So you got to swing the big stick now, man. This is your shot.
I'll see what I can do. The next team on our dock here, our consensus seven, which is where you and Tam had him ranked. I had him ranked number six. Is Marco. Um, I guess I had Marco a little bit higher. He's one of our fantasy footballers listeners. Credit to that podcast; they're fantastic. So I always,
Shout out to them.
yeah, they're extremely entertaining, and we're just trying to do a fraction of what they do. Um, but with Marco there, I just see him as an active owner who made some shrewd moves. I threw some shade at the Chase Edmonds $12 pickup in an earlier podcast, and it's looking like a great addition now for him. He's got Terry McLaurin, Robert Woods, and he's got a top flight quarterback in Deshaun Watson. I think if David Johnson can come back a little bit healthier and hopefully not in a timeshare with Chase Edmonds, I could see Marco making a run at one of those like final playoff spots.
Yeah, I see that argument. I think when it came down to dissecting this middle tier, he came up a little shorter than some of the teams that are comparative. He's at 852 points scored for the season,
Mm-hmm.
and looking at his losses, he has lost to two of the quote unquote low teams. Um, and factoring their overall record 3-4. If two of those losses are towards more of the so-called inferior teams, that took a little bit of the edge away. And also looking specifically at his team, his bench right now is fairly scratch ticket heavy. He's just looking to bank on Kareem Hunt maybe or Tony Pollard
Yep.
taking over for some of that Zeke work down the road. We all know Donald Jones is young and capable, but what's going to happen there? So I just see with DJ going down, he made the right move and savvy picking up Chase Edmonds, but there's
Yep.
not a lot of depth there going forward. So he better pray he doesn't hit some major injuries to his starters.
True. No, that's a good point. And this is one of my rankings where when I made it, I was like, I'm a little too high on him. Crawford's right in that same arena, but I ended up settling there. I guess I trusted his in game management. But that's our top six teams. So we're gonna take a quick break here, Edwin. When we come back, we're gonna do the top half of the league, and I don't know. Is anyone questioning who's number one, or are we going to dethrone Mark? We'll find that out soon. All right, we'll be right back.
Maybe.
We'll be right back here to talk about Crawford's team. Little behind the curtains scene, behind the scenes look in here. Unfortunately, we had gotten through Crawford, Edwin, and Tam. We had a little bit of a crash happen. We apologize for that. Edwin's ready to go though and repeat things about his team. Let's move forward with it. Crawford comes in as a consensus six team. I had him at seven. You and Tam had him at six. Seeing as you guys liked him a little bit better, do you want to start off talking about him?
Sure thing. Yeah. So overall, Crawford, I think was analyzing his overall wins. He's fairly consistent throughout the season. He's beating out some of the top teams, some of the low teams. Coming in the point scored for the season at 876, which is edging towards that upper tier level. And I think overall roster wise, he I know he had Golden Tate come back recently, so it's a big boost there. But we really want to highlight just running back depth is fairly strong.
Yeah.
With Saquon Barkley there, you have Mark Ingram's having a good year, and Melvin Gordon, who has sort of been of a bust, but we know the talent's there. We know he's an elite running back, and at the end of the day, if he turns it on, all of a sudden, Crawford's just sitting pretty, and he has three potentially top 15 running backs in a given week, depending on the matchup there. So that's fairly scary. And overall, Kyler Murray, he has been improving throughout the season too. So that should bode well for him going on the stretch if he can get it going. And he hit big with Amari Cooper.
He did.
So getting him in there, Crawford's just got a good team, I think.
Yeah, I like Crawford's team too. I was one spot lower, but one spot isn't a whole lot. Mark Ingram again, we're just naming off all these backs. He has them all, and that's gonna serve him well as the season goes on. Kyler Murray was a little slower to start the year, and he's picking it up. And I think Saquon too because of the injury, and he's only going to be better from here on forward. So I would expect Crawford to make a run here and be one of those guys pushing. We have him right now consensus in the sixth spot, so in the playoffs. I expect him to be right around there. I don't think he's going to be challenging for a bye week, but right in that lower tier playoff team area.
Yeah, definitely a threat. Definitely a guy you got to watch out for weekly. We know that babyface assassin can never be trusted.
A little shade there for our recently newlywed. Congratulations, Crawford. We love you. All right, we'll jump on here to your team because I think it's always fun to talk a little shade. You know how things go at the office with the two of us. You came in here as the consensus fifth team. Me, Tam, and you all had you as the fifth seed. So complete agreement there, which is always interesting to see. And I think, the notes I had on your team and the reason I ranked you in the fifth seed was I said, despite the AB and carry on, situations where you lost both of them, they were your second and third round picks. You come through with a strong 4-3 record. And I think it's because of, you hit on a lot of guys in the later rounds, and you have my top three for your team, Carson Wentz, Darren Waller, and Zeke, are just they can be the engine for your squad. And yeah, I would love to throw more shade at your team, but I think it's just the way rebounding from the Antonio Brown loss. I have you as the early season manager of the year because manager of the year doesn't mean you're Mark and you're just doing nothing and crapping all over teams, but I think you faced some adversity and lost AB right after our draft, and you weathered the storm with a lot of late round picks. So I think you're doing a great job, and you're going to be right there in the playoff hunt. I think unfortunately without AB and carry on, it just means I don't see you as a team competing for a bye week.
Yeah, and well, first off, thank you for the honesty there. You could have easily gone the sarcasm route, as you do daily, basically.
I'm much more comfortable when I do that too, by the way.
I'm sure this is painful, but I felt bold for myself, ranking myself at just given that I lost my second and third round picks, and that's tough to overcome. But as you pointed out, I hit on some of those late guys like Westbrook, who could be a PPR monster going down the stretch if he gets some more chemistry. He's been improving the past couple games. Lockett has been really playing very well for me, and he wasn't my top guy, so he was just meant to be my wide receiver too, and he had to take on my wide receiver one role, and he's done well with that. And just highlighting my two-headed tight end monster, I have Cooper and Waller, who are number 1 and 2 rated tight ends. I'm actually flexing one of them right now, so I'm gonna ride that tight end wave, especially right now where I'm not sure what's gonna happen with my running back situation. I when half of my fab was with Ty Johnson this past week, but I don't even know if he's gonna get all that work down the stretch. We'll see what the chemistry mix will be there, but I will need some of that magic with Lindsey, maybe Johnson, because Zeke is obviously my must-start running back, but who's gonna be my RB2 is a big question.
Yeah.
But I like to think that I've been fairly consistent as far as being competitive. I'm not killing teams like Mark is. 100 points, he just sits pretty there. But looking at the overall quality of my wins, because I'm dubbing this now. I've got 3 wins against top teams. So 3 of my 4 wins have come against some of those more winning teams in the league. So, and points scored for the year, 897, beating out all the previous teams we've just discussed. So, I think number 5 seems to fit despite the obstacles.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you're in it for the long haul. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And not all of us can be Mark just over there, blowing his load early in the season. I guess one more player to highlight for you too is Michael Gallup. I think he's a player who's going to perform, well after the bye week. Maybe he didn't come back fully healthy, and that's why we haven't seen quite the early season Gallup. But I expect him to be a force down the stretch.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. Especially, young kid seems to be very talented. I'm hoping he rides that out that second half.
Definitely. All right, we're going to take a quick break just to make sure, we don't want any more crashing going on. We have 4 teams left, so we'll take a quick break and we'll come back and talk about the consensus 4th ranked squad. Talk about our 4th ranked squad. There's a consensus 4. And, it's interesting going forward after this because we have a tie at the 2nd and 3rd. So we'll talk here about Will Tam. I had Tam as the 3rd ranked squad. And you and Tam ranked them as the 4th ranked squad. Being the one who differed here, I'll talk a little bit about why I think I differed. We love to joke about Will Tam in fantasy sports that he plays good defense, he gets the best matchups, he gets lucky, all that stuff. But I actually think that his team has a little bit more meat on the bone for the rest of the season here because he has Alvin Kamara and Chris Carson making a great 1-2 punch. You get Drew Brees back, and Kamara is going to be even more electric. He's got Russell Wilson leading the way, who's going to be a top quarterback. And he has Mike Evans, who, I know he's been inconsistent, but that's what receivers are. And I liken this to the Vikings situation last year where Diggs was really inconsistent to start the year, and Thielen was, I think he had like 8 straight 100-yard games. And then the second half of the year, Thielen fell off a map, and Diggs was the better play. I just think that's what receivers do. Like, it's not going to be Godwin putting up wide receiver number 1 numbers the rest of the season. Godwin's going to come back to earth a little bit. And don't hear what I'm not saying. He's not going to be, a poor play. But I just think Evans, is going to end up getting a lot of the share going forward. And I like that for Tam's squad.
Yeah, I think you touched on a lot of the points that I was going to make there. I really like Tam's team overall, very balanced with Kamara, Carson, Coleman as running backs there. No real holes. You feel comfortable starting those guys. Health issues aside, of course. Wide receiver depth, he has that. Russell Wilson for QB, he has that.
Yep.
Looking at his bench, he has a very solid bench, a lot of startable guys. I want to highlight Robbie Anderson hasn't stepped up to the plate like people wanted him to, but the second half, he has a shot at doing so. This is a great stash for Tam there.
Yep.
He doesn't have a dire need at wide receiver where he's forced to start guys like that. He has Alshon Jeffrey right now, is wide receiver 3.
Mm-hmm.
We all know he's very talented as well, even though he hasn't stepped up to quite the same elite level. But I was just curious if Tam also ranked himself as number 4, given his 5-2 record.
Yep.
Clearly, second best record in the league. He's a formidable threat, of course. I think what edged him out for me to be the number 4 guy is John beat him out earlier this season, and comparing the quality of wins, he has 4 of the 5 wins were against some of those low teams in the league.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
Just taking that into consideration when we're considering this upper tier, the eliteness is clearly there because he's at 931 points scored, but we'll see the second half if he can take down some of those top teams and continue getting those wins.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you there, and definitely some good analysis. Sabermetrics over there on the quality of the wins. We like that. So,
gotta trademark that
one. For sure. So the next one here we have is a bit of a tie. We had some interesting results here between John and VJ. They both came out as the consensus 2-3 team. I think when you average it out, they're like 3.6 when you average out where we rank them. So John went with you had him as a 2 seed, I had him as a 4, and Tam had him as a 2. And then VJ, you and Tam had as the 3, I had as the 2. We'll start off with VJ here. So you guys had him a little bit lower than I had him. What was your thought process there?
Yeah, this is interesting because overall, just looking at VJ's team, he's got a squad. We know Dalvin Cook is beasting out. Fournette is there. You have Hopkins, who hasn't broken out to the same level we expect him, but he's still ranked wide receiver number 8.
Yep.
So for anyone taking shots, he's still a top 10 wide receiver.
Yep.
Looking at VJ's bench, I think he doesn't have as much depth as one would like for a top 3 team.
Mm-hmm.
He just snuck out now with J.D. McKissick, which is a savvy move on his end. He might get some of that pass work, and who knows what's going to happen with the Lions. So that's a good move on his part. But
yep.
You have guys like Deontay Johnson, Preston Williams. I feel like the depth there was what could come back to bite him.
Mm-hmm.
A sneaky boost for him is Mohamed Sanu going to the Pats. We all know if any chemistry is developed with Tom Brady, he's going to make that man gold. So
right.
DJ could hit a homer there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's sort of what edged him out a little bit lower for me. Then also looking at the quality of wins, he only has 1 win against the top teams, 2 against the low teams, and he has 2 losses against low teams. So that's sort of what notched him a little lower for myself. If the low teams are beating you, then are you really a top 2?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good point. I think one of those losses to a low team was to me, and I was actually down almost 50-something points with only Julio and OBJ left. And that was that Monday night game where Odell got the long touchdown pass. And I remember this was during one of the late nights at work, and VJ was walking around watching his phone on the game. So I was told. So I snuck out the win there. I guess what I really like about VJ's squad and why I ranked him too is, man, you have Dalvin Cook, who I think has been potentially the fantasy MVP so far. And Fournette's his number 2 running back, gets a ton of volume, including catches. You highlighted Courtland Sutton, who's looking like a low-end receiver 1 he got late in the draft. And a guy in Aaron Rodgers, I think, has not really put up a consistent fantasy season so far. But ever since week 2 on, watching him play, I think it's vintage Rodgers. He's getting comfortable in that offense. And I think the fantasy numbers will follow as he gets more comfortable. He's also going to get Devontae Adams back. So I think VJ, like I said with Tam's team, there's some meat on the bone there, and I think he can pass. And when I'm comparing VJ and Tam, who I both ranked above John, I thought that they had a little bit more they could get going through the second half of the year. Whereas John, in my opinion, with the Austin Eckler, he already got the best we're gonna see of Eckler, and he's gonna get a little bit less going forward. And that was what edged the two of them out to rank them ahead of John in my rankings, which really was the difference between you and Tam.
Yeah, and I noticed you had him at number 4 there. And Tam at number 3. Going. I guess if we're speaking on John's team, obviously he's scored 9. I think it's 992 for the season, whereas BJ is 1,018. So the difference there is you're talking less than 30 points for the season. So they're both fairly tight.
Yeah.
I will note John does have, similar to BJ, we equally have 4 losses, but John has lost out 3 of those top teams in the league. Points against really been killer for John, as we know.
Yeah.
Unfortunate theme for the season.
Mm-hmm.
I see your point on Edwin. I do still think he's very much startable. I still think he's going to
be for sure, yeah.
Asset. Well, not just startable. I should say I still think he's going to be a top running back that you want to get in there. I don't think he's going to fall off that much lower. And I could be wrong here, but I feel like Tyler McCaffrey, Eckler there. Right now, his wide receiver core is all guys that you love to start. With Kenny Galladay, Edelman, Keenan Allen. I know Keenan Allen hasn't busted out fully as we wanted to, being the wide receiver 1 for his team, but
yep.
I feel like having that trio there is pretty filthy. If AJ Green does come back and healthy, that would be obviously a phenomenal addition for him. I see your point as far as overall depth for BJ. As far as his actual starters.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, with replacing some of those starters, if anyone were to go down, I think it'll be difficult for him to do so. I think for John going forward, the potential something to keep an eye out. So Jared Goff, I think it's just been so all over the place, and he is his one rostered QB. So it might be something that he will need to consider as he's trying to make this run at Mark. If Goff is going to lead him down the stretch, could be fairly iffy.
For sure, I agree with that. It might be one of those players that you grab another guy and you play the stream game. And I know there's been a few. I think Phillip Rivers is still out there in our league as well. So there's some guys you can pick up and end up streaming. John, just to reset, he was second in yours, second in Tam's, fourth in mine. So like I said, compared to the top teams, it was just really the fact that I thought John had some players, Eckler and Keenan Allen in particular, that blew up early in the year that I'm not so sure they're going to continue to play at that pace going forward. But he's gotten absolutely hosed with points against. Sammy Watkins scored like half his career points on John in week 1. And, John certainly let us know about it last week on the podcast.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things where sometimes that bit of luck that BJ had there just kind of, it's so unheard of. But when it happens against you, it obviously stays with you, because I'm sure he's never going to forget that matchup.
Right, for sure. All right, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the New England Patriots at the top, and bring some napkins or something to wipe your face off with, because Mark's in town, and we'll get to him next. Wrapping up our power rankings here. At this point, you figure it out. It's Mark sitting there at 1. He got a consensus 1. All 3 of us voted for Mark. Unfortunately, I just came back from therapy this week, still recovering from, that vampire loss to Mark, and now I got destroyed with Mark in a must-win situation for me. And for a while there, I kept messaging you on the side at work, and I was like, I don't think Mark's team is quite as good as it's been. Yada yada. I'm done with it. I'm not throwing any more shade at him. I'm done with.
No, throw shade.
I'm done with the salty discharges straight to my face. And, I'm going to talk about some of the good things he has going on here. Lamar Jackson, you draft him late, and he's been probably like I don't know points wise. He's got to be top two scoring wise across all positions. The Pats defense. I've heard some ridiculous thing this week on the fantasy footballers. We'll quote them again. The Pats defense has been like the Bills defense times three this year. It's just like completely unfair. And then speaking of meat on the bone, I think he's got two players that are going to improve through the second half of the season and make up for any regression you see from Jackson and the Pats D. And that's Travis Kelsey and Christian Kirk. Kirk in that offense with Arizona, I think he's got a lot of ability, but he's been injured. And then Travis Kelsey, the touchdowns haven't come, but is there any doubt that they're going to come soon, especially with Pat Mahomes looking like he's actually healthy?
Yeah, I mean, that's you took basically my analysis as far as specific players there. His team is only going to improve, which is kind of scary. Overall, he's just been murdering the league casually, cool, calm, collected in DeMar fashion, where he doesn't brag too much, but when he does, it stings because he has those humble brag moments that just get to you. Overall, I'd say right now, if if there's a week that he's going to lose, this could be it. Right now, the projections have him within like a 3-point spread with Chris. So who knows? We might see the first upset right now. But if we're looking at the way the season has gone for Mark, 5 of those wins have come against those top teams.
Yeah.
He has been. There's really, everything's going breaking his way right now. So it's really on him just to keep an eye out on those bye weeks going forward. Make sure you have coverage there. I mean, you've already highlighted a lot of the Pats D has just been ridiculous. They're like basically a quarterback at this point with how much points they're putting up.
Yeah.
Can they continue it? That's the real question. Because if they start to flounder a little bit in the second half, that could hurt Mark. Yes, for example, Philip Dorsett starting right now. You never know with Pats wide receivers; they might not be fairly consistent on the stretch. On the take, same thing. So there are, potential holes there. It's not like it's all set in stone.
Yeah.
But if he does get Shepard, Kirk, those guys that are, just could potentially break out to that, second half of upper tier wide receivers, that's still a threat. I think right now Mark just needs to kind of keep doing more of what he's doing. It's hard to critique it right now.
It is. It is. I will critique the humble brags though. I used to think he was a guy who wouldn't brag too much, but I'm coming to the office every Monday now, and it's like, oh, I went like 4-0 in my leagues this week, and yeah, like I won all my DraftKings, so like I have so much money, and like it's great. I'm Mark DeMellon, winning all the leagues, 7-0. Watch out for me. I'm gonna.
Is that Mark DeMellon or is that Donald Trump?
It kind of came through as a Donald Trump.
You started as Mark, and then you ended up being the president of the United States. So that's declined the league.
I'm gonna make James White great again.
Well, good. He's writing. I mean, to your point about his team not being that scary on paper, you look at Aaron Jones, Marlon Mack, James White, Carlos Hyde. These are his running back core. You compare that against like the Crawford team that we talked about with Barkley, Gordon, and Ingram. You would think Crawford would be in this position. So I don't know if it's been just the matchups, but a little bit of luck, a little bit of health, all of the above. But on paper, if I read that off to you, you wouldn't be that scared of that running back core, but they've been doing it for him.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I have a headache just thinking about playing Mark again, but he certainly had a great season, and congrats to him. It's funny how like he's taking absolute bodies and souls in fantasy football, but every year in baseball, which like Mark objectively I think is one of the brighter baseball minds we know, and he just seems to be mediocre in fantasy baseball. But right now he's destroyed. He's destroyed. Well, every year he's right by the playoff run in baseball, and like maybe he'll fall short or try to collude to get into the playoffs, but. With me too. I'm fine admitting it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was like a get body Mark and you.
Yeah, that's fine. I deserve to get bodied with the way my team is going. Hopefully, one of us can knock him off and throw a little shade to Marky Trump over there, but we'll see how it goes.
Definitely.
Well, either way, I think we've completed our power rankings. We hope you guys enjoyed. Probably wrap up the podcast here right around the 51-minute mark. Mark, again, of course, he's everywhere. You can't get rid of him. Edwin, thanks for
Raven.
yeah, for sure. Thanks for joining and taking time out of your video life to join us. Hopefully we have you on again and maybe even get a live podcast at some point.
For sure, man. It's been fun. We gotta get that live session going, and it's been great to do it. So we're looking forward to coming back again.
All right, appreciate it. And to everyone else out there, thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week. Catch you later.